This is Things Police See, First-Hand Accounts, with your host, Steve Gold.
Hey guys, welcome to the show. Thank you for checking it out. In this episode, it's going to be just me. There's no guest to interview here. It's just going to happen sometimes. I don't have a guest lined up. People's schedules are tough, and to be honest with you, I should be better about this because having a hole in your content is never good. But luckily, I had a listener save me. He wrote in. He asked me some questions. He actually wrote me a really nice email, and he asked me some questions which are going to provide the content for this episode because he asked me questions about my police career, and I'll share some of my my stories for you. He asked me about the worst criminal I ever dealt with. He asked me about the dumbest criminal. He asked me about police equipment a little bit. So I'm going to talk about all that stuff and hope you guys enjoy it. So he wrote in. His name is Hassan Cooley, and he wrote, "Hey there, just wanted to let you know that I really enjoy your podcast so much. I'm not an officer, but it's something I'm very interested in doing at some point soon. For now, I do quite a few ride-alongs with my local PD. The guests on your show are fantastic and have the most exhilarating stories and some of the funniest I've heard. Looking forward to the next episode. Best, Hassan." Thank you, sir. This email made me feel great. Made me feel really good. So thanks, buddy. I appreciate it, and I will answer your questions also in this here podcast. So he asked me a question about the show Cops. He said, "Do I think Cops, the TV show, romanticizes police work, or does it appropriately share the struggle of police officers and helps people to empathize with them?" Yes and no. I think it's a fun show. I always liked watching it. I don't even know if it's still on or if there's new episodes. The episodes were always kind of old. I think because of legal issues, they always had to film it and then show it later. But it's a reality show and it's fun to watch, but it doesn't really help humanize cops that much because it's so edited and so polished. They take, I don't know, probably 1,000 hours of footage. I heard they drive around for months sometimes trying to get an episode, and then they splice it all together, all the juicy stuff. But it would be better if it showed, it humanized the cops more and get people to know them better if it showed them in their private lives a little more. And I know they did that sometimes, but not all the time. So I think if they did that a little more, it would have been better. But yeah, I think it gives people a chance to get to know cops. It's not that realistic, though. It takes, a certain city, and it stacks all these calls together as if they're happening in, one night, and really it takes a very long time. So that's my answer for that. Then he asks, aside from my firearm, radio, and vest, that'd be bulletproof vest, I'm assuming, what's the next most useful piece of equipment for an officer? Would you say taser, knife, pepper spray? Well, tasers are good. They only work about 50% of the time. Knives are good for, cutting people out of car wrecks and maybe trying to defend yourself at a last-ditch effort. If you're down to your knife, you're in big trouble. Pepper spray, I never used it once in my career because I'm a pale, orange-haired man, and the stuff hurts me. On calls that I went to where people got sprayed and I got exposed to it, it just ruined my night every time. And I would rather have a bunch of us muckle someone without that stuff, if at all possible. That would be ideal to me. So back to your question, I don't want to be cliche, but I would say the most important thing after those things would be your verbal skills. I know it's not a piece of equipment, but it's true. Your ability to communicate with people and de-escalate situations and read people is the most valuable thing that you can really use along with those other things you mentioned. So verbal skills, but that's kind of a cop-out because it's not a piece of equipment, excuse the pun. I'm going to say your flashlight. 2/3 of police work done at night. And even on day shift, you're going to go into places, warehouses, buildings that are shut down, alarm codes happen. You're going to need to see in dark places, and flashlight is a biggie. If you can't see, you're screwed. So I would say definitely your flashlight for equipment-wise. Then Hassan asks, what's the worst criminal you ever had to deal with? I would say this question, him asking me this, made me go back and catalog all the calls and scummy people I dealt with. And one kid kind of stood out, and it's not like he didn't do anything to me, but it's what he did and the way this person I'm talking about who's kind of pure evil. And I'll explain why. So I'm working one night. I think I was South Sector, and the other cop was North Sector, and then there's a roving supervisor. So it's a small town. There's 3 of us on duty. The other officer and the sergeant go to a call. They're there for half an hour, 45 minutes, and they leave the call with someone under arrest. And I'm kind of shocked, like, whoa, what? Because usually if it's a domestic or a fight or anything violent, we all go. So I'm kind of shocked, like, what? They arrested someone? What's going on? What happened? So they come into the Sally Port, and I talk to the cop because of the car, one of my buddies, and he says, yeah, this kid was snapping pictures of his little cousin, 7-year-old cousin, with his phone, taking pictures of her naked. I was like, oh boy, this is not going to be a great night. I do not like dealing with people like this. No one does. So we get him out. He's probably about 6 feet tall, very thin, very pale, blonde hair, kind of pale blue eyes, kind of a spooky looking dude anyways. And he's just odd. Like, the family never said he was diagnosed with anything, but he definitely, like, just odd, like a emotionless person, like no empathy, a psychopath. He was just a psychopath, that's all he was. Just pure evil. So I win the wonderful treat of fingerprinting him. So I get to get nice and close and rolling his fingers. And as I'm doing that, he looks at me and he says, "Can I ask you a question?" And I'm like, "Sure." And he goes, "You must hate someone like me." So I don't know what to say to the kid. And he's not saying it to, like, agitate me really, or like to get under my skin. He's really asking in, like, a very robotic way. And so I just keep rolling his fingerprints. Then he says, "I would like to know, like, do I make you sick? Like, because of the way I am?" And I didn't answer him again, but it was just gross. Like, he just a weird, cold, like, he was curious. He had no remorse for what had happened or why he was there. He was just curious, like, what's your reaction to someone like me? Like, just a, like, Hannibal Lecter style dude. So come to find out, what happened at the call was he was in the house with his cousin who's 7 and her father who's his uncle. So I'm pretty sure that's the relationships. It wasn't my case and I wasn't there for this part, so I might be a little off. But that's kind of the age people that were there, and I'm pretty sure that's what their roles were. So anyways, the father catches him having her pull her pants out, and he's snapping pictures down, like, in her pants, in her private area. And the dad catches him, and I guess the dad, of course, just totally freaks out. He freaks out, starts smashing things. He ends up taking this kid's Xbox and just smashing it to pieces because it's the kid's prized possession, his Xbox, which down the road ended up being a big problem for the case because a lot of the evidence of what this kid was up to online and with his little cousin was on that hard drive. And of course, the guy's not in the right frame of mind. He's not thinking evidence collection. He's just pissed and he wants to hurt this kid, but he doesn't want to he doesn't want to get in trouble himself, so he smashes his property. So that's what happened at the house. We get the kid back, we print him. Then I end up in the interview room with him with another officer. And I'm just there as a witness, and the other officer's conducting the interview. I'd play off him if need be, but I wasn't, like I said, this wasn't really my case. So we're there talking with him, and the kid is just very calm, cool, and collected, very matter of fact. He confessed. He said he'd been doing it for a little while, never really, he wouldn't get into the details or say that there was ever any penetration or anything like that, but he did give up some facts that he had been taking pictures for a while and kind of escalating things when he had time. The whole thing was just gross. It's just, you want to choke him. You know what I mean? He's just an evil person. And like just something, his brains are scrambled. Like he was put together wrong. He shouldn't be around. He should be on an island somewhere or 6 feet under. That's the feeling you get around those people. So we leave the interview room, put him back in the cell. And a couple days later, after he's arraigned, brought to court and all that, the detective's walking by. He's like, "Hey, you know that case you were on? Look what we found in his phone. I think they got a warrant for his phone or whatever." And he, in his notes section of his phone, he had a list. I forget it was a manifesto, and it was like the destruction and something. I can't forget the words, but it was really creepy. And it just it in bullet points described the steps he was going to take to break his cousin down mentally and then use her for his sexual pleasure. So he was at the top of the bullets. He was just starting. He was taking pictures, touching her once in a while, getting her accustomed to that, getting her to think that was okay. He downloaded all this stuff off, child grooming websites and put together his own list. And the ultimate goal at the bottom, he had like an objective, and it was to make my cousin so-and-so a slave to my penis. And I'm saying penis just to be less vulgar. And that cemented it. Like that, I think, was probably the most evil person that I bumped into while on the job. And that question brought me back there, man. That guy, I hope wherever that person is, if someone hasn't killed that guy, I hope he's got a ankle bracelet on and he can't leave his house. And I hope there's not a child within 10 miles of him, because he is bad news. Not even a glimmer of hope in my eye that he could ever be reformed. So that was, I think, the worst criminal that I ever had to deal with on the job. So, sorry, the last few interviews have kind of gone to a dark place with sexual assault and victims, but that is part of it. That's what cops deal with sometimes. So the next question is the dumbest criminal that I dealt with. This one was pretty easy to think about because we had a guy that we dealt with a few times that was real dumb. He was like 25, super violent guy. His lived with his dad. His dad never said. He said he's not diagnosed with anything. He has a low IQ. Like they took his IQ when he was younger, and it was like 80 or 90 or something like that. So just a dumb kid with a bad temper in a poor upbringing. So those things created this horribly broken person. He actually, before I tell you the dumbest thing he ever did, he actually tried to attack me once on a call. Him and his dad were fighting. We showed up, and I had a sergeant and another officer flanking me on either side, and I just so happened to be the contact officer. And when it was time for him to be under arrest, I told him to turn around. He wouldn't do it. I told him I was going to get him all set up for cuffing. Wouldn't do it. So I went down and said, all right, well, you got to attempt before you can really go after him. So I go to grab his hand, and he just comes right at me. He's going to, deck me. Before I can even defend myself, my two buddies on either side, I'll never forget this, took him under the arms and slammed him into the wall we're out on the porch, wall of the house, and then slammed him face down on the deck. And it was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. So to this day, I don't forget that, guys. You have my back. That was like lightning speed. So that's this kid. He's just a druggie. He's always got weapons and guns. He's just a real dum-dum. So anyways, my buddy calls off one night. He's going off on we had a 4-lane undivided highway run north and south in the town I was in. Calls off and says, I'm off with so-and-so pushing a 4-wheeler down the highway in the travel lane. So I'm not so surprised at this because that's this kid. So we stop him, and me and my buddy question him, and he's trying to tell us he just bought it. Oh, I bought it right over there. The guy I just paid him, and he gave it to me, and it's all set. Don't worry about it. It's like 11 at night. It's raining out. There's no one over. He's pointing at this area that's a gym that's closed, and then next door there's a smaller real estate building, all blacked out. No one there. Totally not anything he described. So we call the owner of the gym, and comes to find out her son had a quad for sale, and this kid had seen the ad and was just going to go steal it, basically. And also, when he's pushing it down the road in the rain on the highway in a lane of traffic, he had taken a screwdriver and punched it into the ignition because he thought I think he just saw so many movies that he thought that he could just, like, a screwdriver is like a universal key for all things. So he stuck that in there and broke the ignition and just, yeah, that was the dumbest thing. The dumbest thing I think I saw, and the dumbest felony anyways that we arrested for. Or I should say a lot of felons are real dumb, but this kid took the cake for sure. That was the end of the questions. He did have one more comment. He said that he really liked the heart-pounding stories and the intensity of it all. Thought they were great, but he said, would I consider asking a question about a job well done or a situation where a police officer went above and beyond? And I had a question like that originally that I was going to ask, and I kind of carved them away to just the questions I ask now, because I want to I don't want the podcast to run too long, and I want to try to keep it exciting for you guys, you know. But it's nice to hear those stories sometimes, and if you guys think that's something I should ask and want to respond and let me know, please do. Go ahead and you can email me at thingspolicec at gmail.com and let me know. I put a link to the email in the description of the episode. So just weigh in on that. If you want me to add that as a question, I can certainly do that. And I know for a fact these guys have heartwarming and good stories because they're good dudes. So if you want me to ask that question, I will do it. So anyways, guys, thank you for checking out the podcast once again. This is a short one. I just wanted to get this in there quick, so you had something. I don't want to leave you hanging. We're going to the East Coast for 10 days to visit family. We're real pumped about that. You should have probably already heard before this one an interview with a CHP officer, and I'm positive it was a great interview. I haven't done it yet, but I know it was good. So I hope you like that. And you're probably listening to this right now. I'm probably on the East Coast right now, and while I'm there, I'm going to try to get an East Coast copper to sit down with me. So I know a bunch of them out there. Hopefully I can steal a little time away and interview one of them. If you're one of those East Coast coppers and you're hearing this, reach out to a brother. Let me know and we can set it up. If you're a cop anyways listening to this, contact me through my email and let's set up an interview. If you have some good stories and you've heard the podcast and you think it'd be fun to come on, let me know. I'd love to have you on, and I think it would be it'd be a lot of fun, and I would really appreciate it. So that's it, guys. That's the podcast for the week. Once again, thank you. And if you really like the podcast, the best thing you can do is click subscribe on iTunes, and the icing on the cake would be a rating and a review. So if you do those things, I love you for it. But I should be back to the normal interview format in the next episode. Thank you guys again, and I'll see you next time.